Today we're going to be looking at another one of Death Battle's videos, specifically Goku versus Superman. I grew up mainly with Dragon Ball, know a little bit about Superman, but not nearly as much as Goku. So it'll be interesting to see how these guys scale these people. People's not exactly the right word, but aliens. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Tyler Folse. I'm a nuclear engineer with a little over 10 years of experience in the commercial nuclear power industry, from engineering to operations to emergency response. Don't claim to know everything there is nuclear, but I can certainly share some knowledge. It'll be interesting to see what kind of physics they break with this fight. Let's check it out.
This episode of Death Battle is sponsored by BetterHelp.
That is a cool animation.
Son Goku, Superman. It's time to answer the ultimate question, and we're taking it all into play.
We're examining Superman's extensive mainline comic book canon. Given Dragon Ball Super's contentious continuities, we'll include all three, just to be thorough, plus Dragon Ball Heroes.
He's whizzed.
Okay, they've clearly done a lot more with Goku than I even know about, because I grew up with Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. Don't know as much about Super and never even heard of superheroes, so that'll be interesting. And all of Superman, that's a long time. Isn't that before World War II? It's an extensive amount of research. Interesting. Yeah, Superman comics, they from the 30s, as in before nuclear weapons were a thing. It's interesting. Superman is older than nuclear weapons, nuclear power plants. That's quite a bit of research. More research, certainly more research than I did in my field.
Boomstick.
And it's our job to analyze their weapons, armor, and skills to find out who would win a death battle. Far
Mention weapons and armor.
away, in an enchanted land, an old master found a boy and marveled at his uncommon strength. This is the story of
Very
Son
similar to
Goku.
Superman.
Chances are, if you've watched some localized anime, you can thank this guy.
Inspired by martial arts films and his wife's interest in Chinese culture, Akira Toriyama crafted the story and the character that would define generations to come.
Dragon Ball.
But not
Kakarot
nearly
was
as old as
born a
Superman.
low-class Saiyan on the planet Vegeta.
This was, what,
narrowly
the 80s?
escaped its destruction by Frieza and was raised on Earth by happy old Grandpa Gohan.
Not just raised, but trained.
Whoa, that is a lot of text here. Birth name. Oh, is that little text what you see on the scouter? That is awesome. Age, well above 4. I mean, I guess it depends which version of Goku you take him from. I remember seeing him as a kid in the original Dragon Ball. Mentors. Don't know Whis and Maris? I don't know. Shallot. Radish farmer, firefighter, office worker. Never seen him as an office worker. That's hilarious. Not a bad dad, you guys are just mean. Oh man, that's pretty good. Favorite foods, anything? Yep.
Gohan began
Remember that.
Goku's teachings in martial arts, which he would find to be his true calling under the guidance of Master Roshi. Specifically, he learned the Kame-sen and Ryu style, which focuses on discipline and tenacity, both of which strongly
Kame-sen
define
and
Goku's
Turtle
character.
Hermit.
The more he learned, the more he wanted to improve. This little low-class monkey boy would prove that hard work and dedication can beat raw talent. Within just a few years, he was so strong, the only worthy
It is kind of Journey to the West meets Superman. It's funny.
teachers left were gods. And a talking cat, but mostly gods. When you're training to dodge lightning, you know you're a few leagues over everyone else.
Dodge
He
lightning.
did have a slight advantage.
Now, one interesting thing about dodging lightning is that right there isn't faster than light. Of course, the light you see from the lightning is faster, but lightning's not nearly that fast. I think on the order of 500,000 kilometers per hour, something like that, which is still pretty fast, but that's one misconception that's out there. Not saying Goku isn't faster than light, because he obviously gets there, but at that particular point in time, maybe not.
Saiyans are naturally superhuman. They also take
Which is
Nietzsche's
crazy.
famous words, "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger," very, very literally.
It's almost unfair how much of a boost in power
Yeah,
they
I
get
remember
after
that.
they're hurt.
While Saiyans like Vegeta may have abused this trait, it suits Goku. No matter how many times you knock him down, he will get back up.
That is one thing that would be so nice to have, because you hear about like career-ending injuries for professional athletes, and it just makes them even stronger. I think retirement age for a lot of professional athletes, football players of both types, both the American and the international kind, you'd see people a lot older.
Stronger than before.
It helps that he knows so many cool combat moves, like the Kamehameha!
An incredibly powerful technique that focuses one's ki into a single point for a devastating beam.
So challenging, it took Roshi decades to master, but Goku got it in like 5 seconds.
Interesting thing about ki is its life energy, but that in this case it's formed into a bit of light, so technically that makes it a source of radiation, but it's just something you see on the visible light factor. No one in Dragon Ball ever brings up if it causes ionizations, but the signature one, the Kamehameha, is often blue, so that kind of blue glow kind of reminds me a bit of either ionizations you see after like a criticality incident, or the Cherenkov radiation you get when certain particles travel faster than light. I'm not saying that's what happens, because this is all fictional stuff that, again, is even inconsistent in its own universe if you can deflect it or if it blows up in your face. I think that's a lot of it based on how well you can control it, but it's interesting trying to apply real-life physics to something like Dragon Ball, and it doesn't always work, but we can try.
It's incredibly versatile, with over 50 different variations.
Evil
For
containment
example, Goku
wave.
can curve the beam after fire, or even shoot it from his feet.
But unlike most Saiyans, he doesn't just use ki.
Don't remember Energy Landmine, though. It's funny to
blow
see
shit
all
up.
these
Moves like
names.
the solar flare, energy
Look at all
landmine,
these
and
lists.
Godbind require
Rock,
a
scissors,
lot
and
more
paper.
strategy and planning.
Because while Goku isn't exactly book smart, he is a genius when it comes to martial arts. He doesn't just train to conquer his opponents, but to conquer himself.
He's also got some different moves, like trapping you in a rice cooker.
Well,
Yes,
pretty much any
I remember
container
that.
can be used for the mop of a ceiling technique.
Then there's Kaioken, aka instant steroids. Goku's multiplied his power by 20 with it before, and in a movie, he even got it up to times 100. What a badass!
The Genki
Wow.
Dama, or Spirit Bomb, is potentially his strongest attack, but it requires consideration.
Yeah, there's life energy from surrounding environment, life forms, and even planets as absorbed energy. I remember it got up to being the range of even the entire universe, but when you get to the late stuff, I've heard that you have to go like beyond universal to even stay relevant, which is just baffling, and again would throw a lot of physics out the window.
Time. Unlike instant transmission, which is a teleport that's instant. The way it works is Goku detects another person, like a sort of beacon, then teleports to their location by launching himself through an alternate dimension where time stands still. Yes, according to the Daizenshuu guidebook, it's a dimension hop. You can actually see this in between space in some movies and games.
And the
Now that's interesting, and yet considerably you could, if you just make an interdimensional shortcut like a wormhole or something, you can just go around normal limitations of the speed of light. Now granted, he travels faster than light other ways too, but this can be more instant than, I don't know how much, I forget how much faster than light he is, than even presumably millions of times faster than light, because that could still take you a noticeable amount of time to traverse intergalactic distances, for instance. So even if you're that fast, there's always a way to go faster, which is interesting.
wanted us to think it shot Goku's molecules around at light speed. Silly English.
The dubs did more than
I do
that.
remember
In fact,
that.
Early dubs
Yeah,
of Dragon
it didn't
Ball
make
Z
a whole lot
tried
of
to
sense.
rewrite Goku as a Superman figure. Even his famous
Oh,
speech
yes,
on Namek
I
about
remem-
being the light in the darkness was originally about him coming to terms with his Saiyan heritage, accepting his anger and pride, avenging his people by defeating Frieza, and declaring
The
himself
West wanted him to
Super
be
Saiyan.
Superman.
Hell
I buy
yeah.
that.
If there's any scene that deserves the word epic,
Also, the flying Nimbus speed feed was impressive early on in the show, but not so much with current eras.
it's when he went gold. Super Saiyan and its sequels all have official power multipliers.
And its
but
sequels.
they threw us for a loop by turning Goku into a god.
Super Saiyan God certainly changed things up. Goku gained divine.
One thing on the power multipliers, they shouldn't be taking those literally, because Master Roshi blew up the moon with a power level in the hundreds, and the average human has a power level of 5. So that means, if That means 5 would be ridiculously high if it was linear. So power levels must adopt some sort of weird function that doesn't make them linear. It must be this crazy exponential sort of thing. So the multipliers multiply the power level in a linear way, but they don't multiply his actual abilities in a linear way. It'd be an exponential increase. Because again, if it was linear, an average person with a power level of 5 could punch the ground and blow up a city without even trying very hard. If a few hundred could destroy the moon.
A pure form of ki unspoiled by mortal hands. Unlike normal ki, it can't be detected and appears to have healing properties.
Kinda like senzu beans. Did you know one senzu
I remember
has
those.
so much healing juice it can regenerate a person's lost limbs?
Oh, dude.
They're missing out.
God Goku reached a level of power that could compete with the greatest of deities, nearly shattering the whole universe with a single clash on his first go. Dragon Ball's cosmology is unique. This model is said to be
This
a
looks
picture
so
depiction
weird.
of Universe 7, but there's a wrinkle there. When all of humanity went to heaven,
Because Boo went berserk.
Fidel commented that heaven is just as large as a universe, and the Daizenshuu backs are up.
And, that's heaven. Big planet.
So let's scale things up.
You would think heaven would actually be even larger than the universe to account for all the beings that have existed throughout time. Like, for instance, humans. Over 100 billion humans have been alive at some point, but most of them have since passed on.
With that in mind, doing so would make Universe 7 over 1,500 times larger than our own observable universe.
And
Interesting.
Goku had destroyed that much the first time he went God. And he didn't lose that power. He learned how to use it even better, even in big...
Goku comparative. The dimension of strange swirling lights with Broly is given attacks had the gravitational pull of black holes. Hey, if you want to see me react to Broly versus the Hulk, I'll pin that in a comment down below. That one gets a lot of crazy, especially with the Hulk's different views on gamma radiation.
form. Now, imagine how much stronger he became when he stacked Super Saiyan on Super Saiyan God.
Yeah, I'm not even going to read all those transformations. I knew maybe the first third. Wow.
And became Super Saiyan Blue.
Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan.
Yeah, not saying that. Or after he trained with some almighty angels. Or when he perfected
Angels.
the blue hairdo and stacked Kaioken on top of that.
Goku
So never watched Super, but I've heard about these angels. It's interesting that the angels are weaker than those that were called gods. Could be something that was lost in translation, though.
has certainly performed great feats with God Ki, breaking through Hit's time stop by forcing himself into the future, holding off Infinite Zamasu, who was a sentient timeline, defeating Jiren, who shook the
sentient
entire world of
timelines.
Void by just
See, greater power levels can counter space and time-based abilities, such as when Boo broke out of the hyperbolic time. That's interesting, and that kind of proves the point I made earlier about power levels not being linear, because that doesn't really make any sense based on the sort of things that you see in the show.
walking.
He even tried out Hakai, the destruction god move that nopes you out of existence. Your being
Yeah,
and your
nopes
soul
you.
erased from all of time and space.
It counters certain
Culminating
levels
in his
of immortality,
greatest
too.
form, Ultra Instinct.
Chrome Goku isn't a normal transformation, it's a state of mind. Ultra Instinct is the highest peak of martial arts, subconsciously making optimal choices because you're in the zone, doing without thinking.
Something Goku has always been trained to do. Technically,
Yeah.
it can be used in any form, but when perfected, Autonomous Ultra Instinct makes you untouchable.
I was going to say he had that ability even in the first Dragon Ball, but it's interesting they call it more. Maybe he just mastered it even more. It's a lifetime of, learning. I think there's a moral in there somewhere.
No matter what comes his way, Goku will automatically dodge, block, and counter to the best of his ability, even pushing his body well beyond his physical limits. So far beyond, in fact, Ultra Instinct can summon a massive avatar to defend him when his own body can't.
Whoa.
That sounds really intense.
It is, which is why he's developed incremental versions of it for specific uses.
That's
it's
different.
extremely difficult to maintain the full form for long.
Until you get to Dragon Ball Heroes, aka Dragon Ball fanfiction gone Kaioken times 1,000.
That's what it looks like. I never delved too deep into fanfiction stuff.
While technically a different continuity, CC Goku is
Different
functionally a
continuity, huh?
stand-in for the mainline Goku. His history and powers are the same, making his story
Capsule
just as
Corp.
much of a what-if scenario as the multiple
Goku
super
sponsored by
continuities.
Capsule
The
Corp.
only real difference is Toriyama's not really involved.
This Goku used instant transmission to teleport through time and dimensions. He outsped a god who could see the future.
Okay.
He defeated Dark King Fu, who was gonna rewrite the
King
entire
Fu.
universe. Hell, this series even makes GT cool. Xeno Goku can break
remember
space-time just
GT.
by going Super Saiyan 4.
Looking back at that goofy monkey boy chopping wood and punching dinosaurs, it's almost overwhelming to think about how far
And he's a
Goku
family
has
man.
come, how much he's had to face.
But no matter the challenge, he takes it head-on and pushes through.
Showing everyone, everywhere, how to go even further beyond.
I like that reflection on him. That's pretty cool.
Faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive. It's a bird.
Locomotives.
It's a plane. It's
How many kids these days even know what a locomotive is? That's one thing I'm curious about.
Superman.
Geez, just a locomotive? People in the 40s
Yeah,
needed
exactly.
bigger imaginations.
Born on the far-off world
That
of
was impressive
Krypton,
back then.
the infant Kal-El was sent to Earth by his parents, narrowly escaping Krypton's destruction.
Interesting of note, Krypton is a noble gas that is produced in a nuclear power plant, and it is radioactive. Though I will say it's quite less hazardous to humans than other fission products, mainly because it's noble gas. You will inhale it and exhale it. It's not going to get stuck in your body like iodine, for instance. So even though it has a spooky sounding name, it's not the most hazardous radioisotope.
Raised by farmers as Clark Kent, he eventually became Superman, champion of the oppressed, the man of tomorrow.
If you've only seen the movies, forget him. Comic book Clark's not the perfect Boy Scout. And he's definitely not Jesus. Wait, weren't the guys who
Oh,
made him
no.
Jewish?
Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster were sons of Jewish immigrants and grew up in a time when anti-Semitism went largely unchallenged.
And
Yep.
then that ugly mustache
Yeah, I was
showed
gonna
up.
say World War
Understandably
II.
seeking escape from some truly terrifying horrors, the pair created Superman to be a simple solution to overwhelming problems.
A hero.
I remember watching some episodes of the cartoon where he fought the Nazis, or, well, they didn't outwardly say the Nazis, but it was a group that was very much heavily based on them.
Could defeat any evil by just punching it. Hell yeah, that's how I live my life.
After almost 9 decades, Superman has been many things.
Clark Joseph Kent. Oh, he has the same middle name as me. Interesting. I love the alien hieroglyphs. They did that for Goku as well as Kal-El. Greater than 30. I like that they just say greater than, because I think they don't really know, because there's so many different continuities. Daily Planet. Beef. Not actually sure how you pronounce that, but beef something with ketchup. That sounds good. Love interests. A lot of L's in there. Interesting.
At the core, his story
Wonder
is
Woman.
one of a refugee, a child who lost his home, left to the mercy of alien people. This new world accepted him, raised him, gave him a new home, because helping others in need
Yeah,
is the
Goku
right
clearly
thing to
based off
do.
of him.
That's why he became a superhero, the first superhero.
Everything's gotta start somewhere, but he was the first one to
Oh,
really
that's
take off.
creepy.
I mean, not literally. It took a while
Animation.
actually before he learned how to fly.
In fact, when Clark discovered his Kryptonian heritage, he struggled to accept
That's
it
the
and
version I
subconsciously
remembered
developed
watching when I was a
mental
kid.
blocks, severing
The
him from
DC
his
animated
true power,
universe.
which he would uncover throughout his life.
He's strong enough to shoulder press the weight of the earth for 5 days straight, or crush coal into perfectly cut diamond.
That's not how that works.
He's fast enough to
No, it really wouldn't. And be interesting to see what he could do to uranium. He's capable of turning coal into diamond, because I always figured that was more of a reality warping feat, or I guess just rearranging bits and pieces of carbon. I wonder if he can enrich uranium that way. That would be kind of cool.
reach the edge of the universe in seconds, or even break the bonds of infinity. Wait, he can do all
Just
that,
a big
but
sideways
Batman
A
can
as the
punch him
bonds of
out?
infinity. That's
Really?
awesome.
You're probably thinking of Elseworld stories outside main canon like Dark Knight Returns. It's a good question though. Superman's powers have fluctuated over time for a variety of reasons. However,
Yeah.
for Death Battle, we take the characters at their best.
Yeah, like
Sure.
how his breath is so powerful he can sneeze away a solar system, or
I remember one version of Superman, he couldn't even fly. He could just jump really high. Of course, there are versions of Goku that couldn't fly either. So it'd be interesting. It would be interesting if they compared the weakest versions of both of them. I have no idea how that would go.
Oh, air cold enough to freeze ghosts!
Speaking of, his
Freeze
X-ray
ghosts.
vision doesn't just see through walls. He can see through your own body and mind to
Supervision, so he would be a good manager, maybe. Sorry, that was terrible.
examine your
Genesis
soul.
powers.
And yet,
I like that.
he can't see through lead. That's okay, though. He can just burn through it with his...
So he can't see through lead. That's interesting because like lead can stop gamma radiation to a point. Though if you have high enough energy gammas that such as gamma ray bursts from space, they can go through a lot more than 8 inches of lead. You're gonna need a lot more lead than exists on Earth to stop something like that.
face. Since he gets his power from the yellow sun, his heat vision burns with the fire of a star. And if beams aren't enough, he can blast it out of his whole body for a super flare.
Now that's one thing that's always baffled me about Superman. The yellow sun makes him stronger, but the red sun makes him weaker. So here you have two very closely resembled types of visible light, non-ionizing radiation, since he's just talking about a color difference. Both are going to emit a lot of other radiation, such as UV, such as gamma radiation, cosmic rays. But the visible light thing is the bit that messes with them, and not even that much of a change, because red and yellow are very close to each other, such on Roy G. Biv, red, orange, yellow. So that is baffling to me, and as far as radiation protection goes, there's not really anything that's that similar in energy level that would cause that different of an effect.
Used to totally drain him, but he's learned how to control it.
Simply put, Superman's powers defy physics. My favorite examples
Yeah.
of this are when he rebuilt the reality warping miracle machine from memory, or punched Brainiac so hard.
That in and of itself, I mean, he could have just have really good memory and he memorized the blueprints. I don't know exactly how he did that, but that in and of itself doesn't defy physics. The machine would, but that's a bit like saying, that would be a bit like saying I personally can generate over 3 gigawatts by, being the project manager for a nuclear power plant construction project. So not really.
Every version of him felt it through all of time. Or when he gained 10 years worth of medical training through only 5 minutes of reading, and then successfully performed lung surgery.
Nice. My favorite
With his
example is when he
own
smelled
eye
brownies in North
vision.
Dakota from orbit.
Laser
Even beyond
fish, whatever.
his powers, Superman is no novice when it comes to the
So he knows some martial arts too, boxing. Okay, so actual martial arts and then alien stuff. Theta state. Okay.
intricacies of battle.
He's trained
Kinda
in
like Goku.
Kryptonian martial arts, which uses chi, or as they call it, Shriar. He even got summoned to Asgard to...
Is there a difference between chi and ki? In one of them just Chinese and Japanese words, but I don't know if there's any different physical properties.
fight demons with Thor for 1,000 years.
Superman can resist being erased
Wow.
from existence, such as tanking Darkseid's Omega Beams. Even Retcon and the Time Trapper, both
So
of
he could probably withstand that Hakai delete attack thing.
which hijack and alter timelines, can't touch him. Not because of his powerful mental defenses or healing factor, but because he's
Ooh,
a
that's
cosmic
brutal.
linchpin in the greater metaverse.
Timelines literally revolve around him.
But let's
Metaverse.
address the S-shaped elephant in the room. You may have noticed we've covered a variety of Superman eras. Superman, and DC Comics as a whole, have gone through multiple retcons.
Yes.
Golden Age, Silver Age, Pre-Crisis, Post-Crisis, New 52, Rebirth, and so on.
It would help to know which one is the main Superman, right? Well, they all are.
Yeah, the latest reboots basically said everything in the main series
I mean, it's just such a long-running series. You can kind of pick and choose. It's a bit like and it's a bit less. I don't know, like the whole Star Wars canon of Legends versus Disney, which that's a whole separate topic right there.
is kind of canon, even when he had wacky powers like changing his appearance with a super muscular control. You
He turns into
guess He
Batman.
can still phase through almost anything,
Or
even
a
people.
Batman.
Look, if you really dig into it, this isn't new. Plenty of characters have recalled events from supposedly retcon timelines before.
Yeah, post-crisis Soups did start as less powerful than in pre-crisis, but that was because of the mental blocks.
Though he's not a complete composite, there's so many other Supermen out there.
Future Superman, Big Robot Superman, Commie Superman, Dinosaur Superman.
There's a communist Superman. Well, why not? But man, I thought it was truth, justice, and the American way. No communists.
There's a bunch.
Still, this new canon has affected his abilities. For example, he and other Kryptonians can effortlessly travel through time. And while Superman's powers stem from the Earth's yellow sun, exposure to a blue star increases them even further.
And that's the other one, the blue one. So maybe it's now that's weird because you're staying within the visible light range. I mean, I guess that would be shorter wavelength and presumably higher energy in most cases. That's going to have that blue light. So it's interesting that lower amounts of the visible spectrum actively make him drain his power. It's not like him getting less energy, it's straight up draining his power. That is just baffling to me.
In fact, upon visiting a white star, he attained a whole new level of power.
When that old ball.
Okay, and white is less so than blue on the spectrum, so they're not even in order. I thought they were at least in order, but it turns out they're not. Okay, yeah, throwing physics out the window.
Lex teleported him to another galaxy, Superman just popped back up, saying space-time has lost its meaning for him. He really just said that.
Remember, Superman defies physics.
Like
Yes.
when he used heat vision to restart the universe by making an all-new Big Bang.
We've seen that
Whoa,
his universe
okay.
has a radius of at least 100 trillion light years, but we can calculate a more exact figure.
Now that's interesting, Superman having universe creation feats, whereas you see Goku and a lot of the Dragon Ball characters having universal destruction feats. Don't recall any of them ever making a universe, but that's interesting.
The DC universe is 15 billion years old and expands at 60 trillion light years per half second. This means its radius must.
Okay, all right. So we're in that. It's still in that cosmic inflation period. All right. I mean, it's a different universe, so it can describe different rules. Maybe the speed of light isn't an absolute limit. Maybe not. Okay. Then again, the expansion of universes, there's the whole Hubble Horizon thing where the universe expanding and things getting further apart in the real universe. But yeah, it's a fictional universe. Probably shouldn't dig too much into it.
Over 50 nonillion light years across.
What? That's 31
They're going to use scientific notation.
zeros, and Soups helped make that happen.
Well, about 1/5 of it. That's still immense power, but if you want something bigger, here's the Anti-Monitor blasting Golden Age Superman with all the energy of the antimatter universe. And then Superman.
Antimatter universe. Okay. Maybe sure, a universe that's mostly antiparticles. And maybe particles are the things that can't last very long.
Punched him so hard it kickstarted another one of those reboots.
Now, Superman does have weaknesses. There's kryptonite, of course, and exposure to red starlight can fade his powers over time.
Not
Different things of kryptonite. Okay, so Superman's weaknesses look like are color themed. Different colors do different things, or not just weaknesses, but just how it affects his things. So that's his vulnerability is colors. Okay.
all at once. He has been able to move planets around while under a red star.
And everyone knows Superman can't deal with magic, but it's more accurate to say he doesn't have any special resistances to it. He's defeated plenty of magic users before, even Shazam.
Superman challenges the idea that absolute power corrupts absolutely. He's the goodest good guy of the...
Interesting. Whereas, so he doesn't have any resistance, but I guess in Dragon Ball, just having a high power levels can resist some level of reality warping or magic. So there's a bit of differences and weaknesses here.
But there is nuance to being good, even if he is the ultimate power fantasy, unstoppable and incorruptible.
Such as when he took on the World Forger, one of the most powerful reality shapers in all of creation.
Who was in the sixth dimension, crafting a whole new multiverse to replace the one Clark calls home. Who's gonna stop him?
Superman could, and the Forger knew it.
Destroys Darkseid's true form with a sub-quantum shout? Does that mean like in between quantum states? I don't know. A lot of these, they use words that kind of have to throw suspension of disbelief in, because the words, what they mean in our universe isn't necessarily what's being portrayed here. Perfect example would be like looking at blueprints. When's the last time you saw blueprints that were actually blue? So sub-quantum, probably shouldn't take that one too literally.
So he was trapped on a world with a sun so distant he could never escape. Or so the Forger thought.
Instead, Clark found the strength he needed to fly at that sun, dip through a ton of stars, KO the World Forger, and shatter his new multiverse with a single punch. Because that's
Multiverse,
Superman,
huh? Okay.
a simple solution to overwhelming problems.
He's the kind
Just
of person
punch
to save a cat
things.
from a tree, answer Christmas cards
But he
from
knows other
strangers,
martial arts.
and tow hundreds of planets to a new galaxy all in the same day.
Okay, now this is just silly. We're just gonna put a chain, stick the chains through the planet cores with no adverse effects, put them on a string, and take them somewhere like it's a giant necklace. Maybe he's gonna wear them like a necklace. Or maybe he made them into the necklace for Lois Lane or another one of his LL love interests.
What's not to like?
Truth and justice has no better champion than the Man of Steel.
All right, the combatants are set. We've run the data through all possibilities.
It's time for a death battle!
Ooh, now who do I think is gonna win this one? So, it sounds like Superman, at least now I'm going entirely based on their description since I didn't look at 80 plus years of research for Superman, and evidently there's some major gaps with my knowledge about what Goku can do as well. But I'm thinking Superman has more upstring in sort of taking out multiverse. I think the definition of multiverse is bigger than just... I think when they say that, they should mean multiverse as in not just multiple universes, but the hyperspace or whatever exists in between universes. Whereas Goku is more of just individual universes. So that would put Superman several orders of magnitude and possibly an infinite number of orders of magnitude above him. Though Superman's got a lot more weaknesses to colors. And Goku's weaknesses can be kind of, just by him being powerful, he can overcome like various magic whatever things. But Superman doesn't really have much of that. So what's interesting is I actually think Goku might be able to fight better against some of Superman's opponents just based on that presumably aren't multiverse level. I don't know that Goku isn't multiverse level, so I think in order for Goku to win, he would have to use one of those color-themed weaknesses or something. But Goku doesn't really do that. When he fought Cell, he gave him a sensu bean after their fight, so he's not gonna find a weakness to exploit him even in a life or death situation, because that was a life or death situation in Dragon Ball. So it'd be interesting to see what they do, but I think Superman has the advantage here. I'm gonna be pulling for Goku though, just because he's who I grew up with. Though, I mean, it's always weird to see. It's one thing with like, you know, Broly versus the Hulk, where neither of them are really characters I'm a big fan of, but Superman and Goku are both at least good guys, so it kind of hate to see one of them go, but I think Superman probably has the advantage in this case. Please feel free to tell me how wrong I am down in the comments.
Oh!
Oh, this is cool. So Goku starts off as regular
Today's
Super
the day.
Saiyan.
We'll finally settle who's stronger.
If you say so.
This is beautifully animated. Maybe even better animated than Dragon Ball was when I was a kid.
You're holding back.
Superman just started a forest fire.
No regrets.
Use that cape as
Doing
a...
just fine.
We turned blue.
Kamehameha!
That's one thing that was always crazy to me about Dragon Ball. So when he went from yellow to blue, his power went up by crazy amounts. And he could shatter universes at this point, but he somehow concentrates all that energy into something that just affects that area. Maybe that's just part of him being a super master martial artist type guy. But yeah, so you can use it to bust things like thermodynamics, because that would be have enough energy to create enough heat to destroy universes. This is going to do a lot more than, you know, blow this lake. Now they're in space. Is that close? That's kind of a cool attack.
Oops. Well, I guess we can wish it back later.
World made of cards.
That is Goku's attitude about everything. Yeah, the Dragon Balls are basically just a reset button.
All right, I'll show you just how powerful I really am.
Ooh, he's got electrical stuff.
Looks like a job for...
So all the versions of them across the across the multiverse are fighting each other at once. That's cool. Now they're in the standard Dragon Ball Wasteland fight scene.
Well, what do you think?
He's so sparkly.
Nice suit.
Oh, thanks. Kryptonian fabric. My mom made it for me.
Ultra Instinct mode. It's a lot more sparkly now. Whoa. This is bringing me back to my childhood. I love it. Red Death Sphere. Oh, he released some solar energy.
Finally.
Is he eating some suns? Blue versus yellow. Whoa. That's insane. So much color. That took out the universe, didn't it?
Huh? Ah, darn it.
Oh, he did.
Almost had me there. That was actually pretty fun.
Yeah, it sure was. But I'll be stronger next time.
I look forward to it.
Let's go again.
You're on.
That's awesome.
KO! That's it!
Yeah, okay, and that might have been a multiverse destroying punch thing, because it was just this big white void or something. Anyway, okay.
The final, indisputable answer! Ah, who am I kidding? People are gonna argue this one forever.
There are so many ways this
Oh,
battle
I'm sure.
can go, especially with all the other continuities.
Yeah, for real, Goku would kick almost every other Superman's ass, except for the main one.
There's a lot to cover, so
Interesting.
let's address the 5 categories most representative of this fight.
Oh, so it's
First up,
composite.
strength. Both could hit hard enough to break or make their whole universe, or take it in stride, like when Superman got smacked by the whole antimatter universe.
At most, Dragon Ball's universe is 1,505 times larger than our own. But
Sure.
based on the DC Universe's officially established age and rate of expansion, it is 1.6 vigintillion times larger, over a novemdecillion times more than Goku's.
That's
Not to mention their light speed is different, and that's gonna throw a whole bunch of other craziness into the mix, but Yeah, so the actual multiplier is probably going to be different, but their estimate might actually be conservative. So it could be a bigger number that the DC universe is larger than relative to Dragon Balls.
At some point you reach a number high enough that it just doesn't mean anything anymore. Anyway, Goku's obviously gotten stronger since the Beerus fight, even by billions or trillions of times. He's defeated Jiren,
Can destroy all infinite timelines and all numbered dimensions. They've done some serious research to even come up with this, because who even like hyper time? What even is that?
Broly, Moro, and Fu.
But even if we highball Goku by quadrillions or quintillions of times, the gap is just too much, especially with the World Forger feat. Not even Heroes competes with that. Superman takes the edge.
Multiverse versus
But
multi-universe
strength
is
isn't
pretty
everything. Let's talk speed. Both are obviously way
clear.
faster than light, but Superman crossed that mega-sized universe of his in seconds and flew faster than infinity.
Makes sense.
You got through
He can
the
keep up with
sideways
the
eight.
Flash, whose speed is so ludicrous.
That's
it's
impressive.
unquantifiable.
Don't count Goku out, though. Flying across the entire afterlife in base form and outspeeding Eos's future sight takes some crazy speed.
Fighting Zamasu as an omnipresent merged timeline also implies immeasurable speeds.
That, combined with instant transmission and ultra instinct, could
Immeasurable
probably
speeds.
keep up,
Yeah.
maybe.
Quantifiably, Superman is faster, but both are immeasurable. The safest bet here is to say they tie in speed.
This
Yeah, I was gonna say if they're both immeasurable, then yeah, you can't. Though for them to both be immeasurable, does that necessarily mean they're both, infinite, or how many infinities they stacked on top of each other? Math can get kind of weird sometimes, but I can see the argument for just saying they're probably the same or similar.
Especially when we look at skill. Goku's a martial
Skill.
arts master. He's definitely got better battle instincts. He wants to fight and is dedicated to his training, while Superman sees training as a means to an end.
Superman's knowledge and pressure point
Goku's
combat
got a
and
much
martial
more
arts
fun
are
attitude
impressive,
about
but he's
fighting
only
than
used them a few
Superman.
times. It would be disingenuous to say he's an equivalent master at them.
So Goku wins in skill, but not necessarily in experience.
Don't get it wrong, Superman is not a mindless brawler.
It's a good way of putting
Batman
it.
and Wonder Woman. He's even defeated martial arts experts like Cobra without powers.
Goku has spent decades training, but Superman battled Norse demons for 8,000
there's
years.
He's
thousands
also
of years or something.
astonishingly brilliant, like when he reassembled the reality warping miracle machine from memory. Experience obviously goes to Superman, but perhaps less obvious is our last category, powers.
Hakai, Spirit Bomb, Mafuba, Instant Transmission, God Key, God Bind. How does Goku not win with those?
In Dragon Ball, Ki is dependent on physical ability,
Yeah.
so it's different from magic. God Ki is simply pure Ki, and magic isn't an auto win against Superman anyway, whose greater strength could break out of something like the God Bind.
Mafuba and the Spirit Bomb would take way too long, and Goku's never successfully used Hakai before. Even if he did land it, Superman's impossible to erase from reality.
Yeah,
like,
they
he's
mentioned that.
Mega Beams, which do the same thing as Hakai.
Superman can time travel, countering instant transmission's similar ability from Heroes. And regarding teleporting him to a red star, ignoring the fact that Saiyans can't breathe in space, though Goku's certainly tough enough to withstand a vacuum, instant transmission.
That is one thing that's kind of baffled me always about Dragon Ball characters, is how powerful they are. They have some really odd things. Like I almost kind of forget they can't breathe in space, or they're not biologically immortal, because you would think they would be like immune to aging or something, but it turns out they're kind of not. Just weird.
Requires another person to act as a
It'd be a bit like, I think the equivalent would be like being able to know how to make a nuclear power plant before knowing what fire is, except when it comes to superpowers.
He can't just warp to any red star.
Even if he did, Superman could simply
Here we got some things. Yeah, okay. Greater martial arts. Have some equal, ultra, similar to theta state, potentially similar speeds, better mobility. But yeah, if Superman's just that much stronger, it's kind of how hard Goku doesn't really have a way to counter it unless he tried to exploit some weaknesses. But again, Goku wouldn't. That would be very out of character for him, and it would take a lot of weaknesses to down someone from multiverse to just a few universes, comparatively speaking.
fly away and find a blue or white star for a supercharge.
And Goku could not pull off the same trick twice, as Superman could phase through his attacks.
So that's it then. Clark has too many counters, so he takes the edge in powers and it's over.
Well, I think there's something else. Goku vs. Superman breaches a broader zeitgeist. It's more than just two characters fighting. For a whole generation, especially in 90s America, superheroes represented an unyielding status quo.
I also find it interesting that as an American in the 90s, I had more affinity for Goku than I did Superman. Not to say I disliked Superman, at least the cartoon version. I never really cared for the Christopher Reeve movies. They just weren't my cup of tea. I wonder how common that is for Americans for Americans to prefer Goku over Superman, despite Superman fighting for truth, justice, and the American way.
Spider-Man, Batman, Captain America rarely change who they are or what they believe in. For a lot of people, that's tiring, and Superman is an icon of that. Then along came anime. There was a whole other world of ideas and stories for us sheltered Westerners to experience, and Goku's an icon of that. So while many see this as a debate between characters, others see it as a debate of ideologies and culture. And if that's what's at stake, who wants Goku to lose?
You guys are getting into some weird territory now about which culture is... Don't want to go full culture warrior here. Just say there's stuff that, people enjoyed, and as I was even mentioned, the target audience of Goku, of someone who liked watching Goku as an American 90s kid, sheltered perhaps, sure. But, I guess that answers my question.
You're sure you're not overthinking this?
It's not our intent, but it does call into question what we're doing. How can people agree with what we take as fact when fiction relies on interpretation? Are we stripping characters of their importance by simplifying them to contestants in a vacuum of violence?
Isn't that what their channel's supposed to do? But anyway, anything that's, a 1 versus 1 instance, I see it as, anyone could probably defeat the other one on some level. It just has an absurdly low probability. One that, especially when you extend it off of multiple timelines.
And if so, then what's the point?
Because it's fun, Wiz. Damn it, man. There's more than one way to appreciate something. We're having a great time talking about awesome characters and slamming action figures together. And that's okay.
Yeah. You're right.
I'm just saying, no matter who you
This
prefer,
guy's growing on me a bit.
Was super,
I didn't like him as much in the previous video I watched.
That's the worst
but...
pun.
What? It fits them both.
It's so lame.
I don't see you doing any better.
I do the math. The pun's your job.
Well, maybe if you math it.
Not sure I'm a big fan of Superman's face right there. That's a little,
Good as I punned, then Goku would have won.
What is wrong with you?
Wow. That was epic. I really enjoyed watching that. Anything that involves science, physics, nuclear physics, even weird nuclear physics like color-based weaknesses, I still find really cool. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.